Guess who? That's right, it's Nick Dutch. Back on the camera again. One more time. Hi there, how's it going? Yes, baby! How much caffeine have I had today? Jesus Christ. Okay, this particular video is going out to a particular YouTube user who has done me the great pleasure of sending me a private message, and his particular private message says, I like your videos very much. Yeah. You know, flattery. Yes, love it, man. And you may be interested in the paranormal, especially telepathy and telekinesis. You kinda open my eyes, and you seem to know a lot about these subjects. Yeah, I do. That's because I can think. And there's lots of people in this world, in this New Age type world, who can't. Alright? Big issue, okay? The message goes on, you know. And I was wondering if you could recommend me some books which I could read on these subjects, especially interested in the how-to part. Alright. Okay. If you're going to use the words how-to, okay, I would seriously not search for a book about supernatural, weird, New Age type stuff on like Amazon or whatever with the title how-to in it. Because what they're not going to do is they're not going to tell you how to try and generate a particular effect. They're not going to give you good enough theories. They're not going to give you like all the psychology behind it, or the like the neuroplasticity and neurological stuff that's behind it. They're not going to go into the other states of consciousness stuff all that much or all that deeply, because they're just not. What they're going to try and do is sell you a method, and that will be that, you know, you only use certain colored candles, or you only chant in certain words, and so on and so forth. So what they're actually doing is trying to sell you a religion. And do you want a religion that some person has written and created? For the most part, your answer will probably be no. Because if you are asking, how do I do it? What you want to do is to be able to say, like, this is the action I'm going to take, this is the results I would expect to get. Alright, that's the result you'd expect to get. Now, there's lots of people out there who are delusional in that they would much rather spend all their time going through tons of mental masturbation. Alright, tons of it, you know, this speculation coming out of every single pore of their skin. And then assuming that what they're speculating about is the facts of nature. And they will often try and apply lots of scientific words here, there, and everywhere to make it seem like they're really important people, when in fact they're not. They're a bunch of wankers who can't think their way out of a paper bag. So, if I was going to recommend any books to you, I would have to recommend those which I personally regard to have some merit. I certainly don't think that you should take any book on, you know, as gospel truth at all. Because everyone writes things from their own perspective, with their own experiences and all the rest of that. Even me, I'm just talking to you about my own perspective, the things that I think and the things that I've experienced and the things which appear to be true to me within certain limits. Alright, so you are free to disagree. Okay, understood? Clear. Okay, I'm not God. Everyone would like to be God, but I'm not. Some people pretend as if they're God, that they have like brain chemistry like issues, or they were bullied when they were in school and they haven't quite got over it by the time they're like 50 or 60 years old, you know what I mean? You know, just there's some difficult people in this movement, alright? So, what I would suggest first, the best that I've ever read was The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan Muldoon and Harewood Carrington. Muldoon spelled M-U-L-D-O-O-N, and his first name Sylvan, S-Y-L-V-A-N, I think, Sylvan Muldoon, and Harewood, H-E-R-E-W-A-R-D, Carrington, C-A-R-R-I-N-G-T-O-N, I think. That was amazing. That was beautifully written, because it was try to break everything down into a very scientific way. And if you go through it bit by bit, and you're actually quite analytical about the way in which you read it, you'll start to see the various different ideas which he has put into how he's managed to create the effects. Of course, Sylvan Muldoon himself was quite a sickly individual, therefore making it easier, hypothetically easier, to actually do an astral projection. Okay, you got to bear that in mind as well. Okay, but on the other hand, fascinating stuff. Sure, it took me ages for me to be able to generate my first fully conscious exteriorization, but I had the experience. Yes, it was cool. So that is the principal, in my estimation, the principal best book on the subject ever. Alright. Second only to that, you've got the writings of Peter J. Carroll, namely Liber Null and Psychonaut, which is the title of one book, which is actually a combination of two, but it's one book. And another one called Liber Chaos, which I also think was by Peter J. Carroll. And Carroll is spelled C-A-R-R-O-L-L. So 2 R's, 2 L's, I think. I don't rate Phil Hine as much as I rate Peter J. Carroll. You've got to be careful about the way that Peter J. Carroll has written, because he himself is trying to create a new cult, which is chaos magic, a new definition, a new cult in its own right. So some of the words there are written in some of the ways that he's expressed his language is, or appears to be, how shall I put this, a little too big, a little too impressive. Alright, and as a result of that, it's worthwhile sort of like applying a bit of like personal control to it, as it were. Anyway, you'll work that out when you read the book, if you got a brain in your head, which I think you will. Now, the third selection of books I would recommend moves on to a slightly different tack and a slightly different subject, but one which is still very important. It is, of course, the writings of Barbara Ann Brennan, B-R-E-N-N-A-N. Now, she's a professional spiritual healer. She's got PhDs in atmospheric physics, I think, and she's a professional spiritual healer. Okay? So a lot of her writings are about the way in which she perceives or understands things such as the aura and the chakras and energy lines and how spiritual healing is done and the rest of that. And her writings are basically very slightly new agey, angel, fairy, and crystal-y stuff. Okay, ever so slightly. But on the other hand, if you can just put that shit aside and put the theology that she's trying to portray aside, and look at the way in which she explains the way that memory works from her point of view, and the way that the spiritual healing energy seems to also operate, that's very interesting. Now, I'm recommending these 3 different books, or groups of books. So you got like 3 by Barbara Ann Brennan, I think it was. And then there was, of course, 2 by Peter J. Carroll, and of course you got 1 by Sylvan Muldoon and Harold Carrington. So that's a small library. So they seem to represent some of the basics of different schools of thought: astral projection, spell casting, and healing energy, or orgon type, plasma-y, bioplasma-y, weird stuff energy. Okay, so that will then give you a form of structure as to how to play about with weird shit, says he very scientifically. That is a technical term, actually. That, you know, weird shit is a technical. You got to have a PhD to, you know. Never mind. All right, so that's why I'm recommending it, and the books themselves are reasonably well explained. As far as the promises which Peter J. Carroll came out with in the versions of Liber Null and Psychonaut that I read, and of course Liber Chaos, I'm not sure whether I agree with them, because I think that these were hypotheticals and speculative, rather than based upon detailed reasoning and personal experience. I think that he does extrapolate a bit too far. I don't get that feeling at all with Sylvan Muldoon. I don't get that one little bit. And my personal experiences correlate very closely with what he's also described, even down to the colour of the astral light itself. So I don't think that Sylvan Muldoon was wrong. I think he was pretty much on target. I think that Peter J. Carroll got a bit maybe obsessed and slightly maniacal, as it were, with his writings and his attitudes. Barbara Ann Brennan, very empathic. very socially concerned, but of course she's now making a mint out of her Barbara and Brennan schools of spiritual healing, which I mean, you can give them a go if you want, but essentially I personally don't think that that's necessarily where you want to go. I think you're much more sort of like, more direct weird shit, you know, more let's make something happen, rather than the self-developmental aspect. But of course the self-developmental aspect overlaps with meditation, ritual, prayer, and all that kind of stuff. Also, I would say, do not neglect religion and trying to reach a religious state of mind. You don't have to accept anything that anyone of any religion says. No, build it up yourself. Alright, because there's something funny. There is really something very funny about the state of mind of prayer. Calm, tranquil, reverent. It's serene. There's like different areas of the brain are activated by. It feels so damn different if you can get that note right. So that is somehow a part of the whole equation. All right. So it's part of it. Okay, it really is part of it. So and I don't think it really freaking matters what religion you've got, so long as it is like you know, that kind of like transcendental, spiritual, universal kind of like higher power concept thing thrown in there. That concept alone, if you can hold it in your concentration when you're doing, you know, your relaxed, focused attention concentration when you're doing a deep meditation and you're focusing on doing things like chakra opening exercises, can like boom. You know, it makes something happen, and that's when you feel the eyeballs rolling up inside your head, and like light is coming into your head, and you sometimes get like weird messages occurring. Like it's beautiful. It really, I can't properly describe it. I just can't properly describe it because I don't think I can give it justice. But it is an important part of the whole thing. But one of the reasons that a lot of people like are wary of religion, they don't want anybody else trying to control them. And I think that's very sane. You know, you don't want anybody else telling you what to do or how to do it. Because if you go through Wicca, if you go through, well, sorry, let me rephrase that. When I went through Wicca, I got worse head fucking than I did when I was being seriously abused in a fundamentalist, charismatic, Christian, conservative, extreme, hard rights, you know, we hate everybody kind of like church. Alright, there's people out there who, you know, make claims to be like the great magician or like the powerful occultist, okay, or like the really wise witch. Yes, I'm a really wise man witch. Yeah. I knew a 22-year-old guy who spoke like that. Okay, a 22-year-old man who spoke like that. You know, as I say, there's disturbed people in this world. You don't need to be a part of them. Experiment on your own, but also, when you do get strange experiences, which you may, or you may not, but I think that you may if you've got a curiosity. Make sure you've got something in your life which can provide you with stability and grounding, maybe a good bit of structure, a few, you know, things around you which make you feel comfortable, photographs of your loved ones on the wall, things like that, okay? Because when your home environment feels full of something good, then you don't worry about anything bad happening because it can't, alright? Because you create a psychological barrier because everything around you is nice, alright? Whether it's just like having like blocks of quartz crystal, you know, rose quartz to make it feel all lovely, or you're burning the right incense, or whether you just have things around you which you like, okay, to give you like that feeling of like this is my space, like everything else can fuck off. You know what I mean? Anyway, bit of a ramble, but you kind of like get the message there. I think this is what I would recommend. And I've recommended those 3 like collections of books to a lot of people out there, because I kind of like respect what you can get from them, and everything else is up to yourself. And I certainly am not going to turn around to you and say, well, because you've read this book, that book, and the other book, therefore you have to do this, have to do that, and have to do the other. You've got to be rational with your own experimentation and work out where you are and where you want to go with it, and give yourself time. You're not going to be able to, I don't know, get an astral projection on your first attempt. It could take you 2 or 5 years, you know, or it could take you 3 weeks. I mean, it's variable. Alright, it's just a question of something you do in your spare time, bit of meditation, bit of practice, and just see what you can achieve, and or not, as the case may be. Don't have to take it too seriously. Don't worry. You know, just like life will carry on. You know, just. But if you don't play with it, it won't get better.